Alright, well, here's the main deck of the Flying Cloud. All the pins are in place, ready to be trimmed off, and that'll pretty much finalize the construction of the main deck. I will be putting some combing, or what's called combing, trimming, around the edge, as I have done on the foredeck and on the raised quarterdeck, and then install it on the ship. A couple of little pointers I thought I'd point out. When you're working with cryo-sio glue, for example, one of the things that I do just before I do the sanding is I give a liberal bath of glue to the bottom of all these pins to make sure to hold them in place. One of the tips is when using cryo-sio glue, you're going to get a lot of vapors. In fact, it's even started to affect my eyesight over the years. So a couple of the tricks that I learned is rather than holding things down and looking over top of them, in the case of this where I have the luxury of freehanding it, hold it above your head or above your eyes when you're applying all this glue like this. And that way the vapors will drift straight up, because they only go up, and they'll stay out of your eyes that way. Another one of the tips, specifically for the construction of decks where you're putting these deck pins in, as I've done here, is I'm predominantly putting the glue that holds these deck pins in place on the bottom. And the reason for this is that way when I snip off these tips on the top and I go to sand it, I don't want to have to unevenly sand the deck as far as pressure goes, because in some places I've got too much glue and other places none at all. So one way to avoid that problem is I put a little tiny bit of glue just to secure the pins in place as I stick the metal pieces through the pre-drill holes, but I'm applying liberal amounts of glue to the bottom side of the deck. And that way, once I snip off all these tips and sand them off, of course this glue is what will hold them in place, but it also prevents me from having to sand too hard on the deck and possibly damage it because I've put too much glue on the deck. Well, this is where the reward comes in for all those hours of work that you put in when you're building a ship model. So I had to share this with folks. I just completed the main deck, all the pins, planking, and everything, and I started to lay some stain on it, and immediately you see the magic. This is what I meant by the fun part, when you turn rough work into your finished product. So watch this. Watch as magic is made. This is really cool. Look at that. Look how beautiful you can see the details in the deck. All of the brass pins that have been put in place, and then also the rope caulking, the teak wood deck planks. Everything comes to life when you in this case I'm adding a clear coat. It's not actually a stain, it's more of a clear coat, a polyurethane clear coat. It's just, and you can see the difference dramatically. It goes from the flat, more or less undetailed look, and then all of a sudden you can see all the details in your work. Now let's take a quick walk around the completed decks of the Flying Cloud. This is going to be the last opportunity, the only opportunity, to see the deck uncluttered before the deck houses, deck hatches, the aft deck house, and the steering compartment and so on is all built in. A lot of this planking that's been done is going to be covered over and won't be visible, so this is the only time to get a look at the complete planked deck of the Flying Cloud. Now I've just applied a couple of coats of clear gloss, or actually it's a semi-gloss polyurethane, so the deck looks real shiny right now. It won't look this shiny in about an hour or so, and the plan is to put about 4 or 5 coats of this clear polyurethane on the deck, and then when it's completely dried, spray it with a semi-gloss flat urethane coating, which will give it the desired look of a ship that's been at sea for 3 or 4 months. Deck came out beautiful. I'm very, very pleased with the finished product. Again, when you look up real close, you can see all the deck pins. There's 1,200 and some deck pins holding all the deck planks in place. The real rope caulking in between the deck planks. Teak wood used for the planking, just like on the real ship. Now the rest of the bulwarks are going to be painted black, so there's no reason to stain them. All of the bulwarks are going to be completed with pin rails and then painted black as they were on the real ship.